Krennic, Dryden Voss, Tobias Beckett, Joseph Snoke. Does Star Wars have a villain problem? We'll find out. Welcome back to the Resistance broadcast. My name is John Hoey. Yes, I said Joseph Snoke, because I don't like Supreme Leader Snoke anymore. Kylo's the Supreme Leader.
Is his name Joseph?
We're going to have a long...
Yeah.
That's canon now.
Yeah. Lacey, read the novels. Jeez.
Is his name Joseph? Oh boy, this is going to be a good one. We're going to have a long discussion whether or not Star Wars has a villain problem in a little bit. So you just heard her, so might as well say hello to the gang here. James Bainey and Lacey Gillerin, what's going on this week, guys?
Oh man, I'm still kind of recovering from Monday's episode. Lots of news, lots of information, but I just got new word that Snoke's name is actually Joseph, so there's a lot to talk about, probably even more than Monday's news. So yeah, gonna hand it off. What about you, Lacey?
Is that really canon?
That's not canon. Get out of here.
I was gonna say, what did I miss? I just want to. I wish we could play in between this moment the clip from the Star Wars show's 100th episode where Pablo just goes, "This is not canon. It will never be canon." Oh my gosh. How's it going, guys? Excited to be here, talk about Star Wars, and talk about some villains. God, I love Kylo Ren.
Well, at least you admit he's a villain. But
he is right now.
I mean,
he doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
So if you guys ever are wondering if Lacey Gillerin is gullible, she is. Because we just convinced her that Snoke's first name is Joseph.
But you didn't convince me because I kept asking you, wait, that's legit?
Wait, his name's Joseph?
So that's not convincing me because from the first moment you said it, I was like, wait, what?
I mean, he's no Jebediah Maul, but...
Right, that's true.
Jebediah. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Boss Timothy Nass doesn't approve of this, but what are you going to do?
Isn't it time for that other section of the show?
It is. And in the words of the late, great Joseph L. Jackson, Lacey, is the Force with us this week? Let's find out. What do you got?
The Force will be with you. Always.
Rumors are rumors, but they are fun and perfect for this segment. So with that said, there is a rumor that a toddler is being cast for Episode 9. Many immediately began to speculate this means a flashback to a young Ben Solo. Would you want to see a flashback of a very young Ben Solo in Episode 9? Is the Force with you, John?
Yes, I would love this. It would be new for Star Wars to do that. I know that they did a little bit of a flashback of him in like his early 20s or whatever that was, mid-20s. But seeing this would... remind us of that tease we got in Last Shot, that novel, where we saw baby Ben with Han Solo. So imagine we get a chance to see, Han and Leia with Ben somehow, and maybe even Luke comes back and Mark Hamill has another way to get into Episode 9 to ease some fans' pain from his passing in Episode 8. And it just sounds interesting to me. So whether or not this rumor is true, I would like to see this. So the Force is with me.
James, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd like to see it too, although I do kind of believe that the rumor is probably not Ben Solo. If the question is, do I want to see it be Ben Solo, then yeah, I mean, that's cool. Especially since like in the, Force Awakens novelization, we in her Force Back thing, we saw that there was like a boy, and they never showed that in the movie, that she was seeing this young child, and there's always the talk of like the child that was influenced by Snoke, much like Anakin and Palpatine, and just this image of like the boy looking up and Snoke looking down. And that would be a good way also to, even though the character Snoke is dead, JJ, honors that, but to bring Snoke back, have Andy Serkis return to reprise the role as a younger flashback Snoke, and we could keep cutting back to these scenes that we didn't get in Last Jedi that everybody wanted, So the whole idea of this child being influenced by Snoke is really cool. Maybe we'll get some insight on him being part of the...
And we can all be like, yay, Joseph's back!
Joseph, Joey...
That is not canon, John.
It isn't canon. The Joey spinoff show was actually about Snoke. It wasn't a spinoff of the Friends series. It was about, but it's not canon anymore. There was too much Plagueis in it.
Joseph Snoke and the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
James, the Force is too strong with your delivery, so when you do sarcasm, it doesn't come across sarcastic. It comes across like you're genuinely saying what you're saying.
Oh, I don't even remember what I was being sarcastic about.
Before I give my answer, because we obviously all know what I'm going to say, there are also rumblings that this toddler could be something else. So I want to know what you guys think. What if it's a child of characters in the film? John? We got to talk about it. It's one of those rumblings that people are talking about.
Yeah, if your rumbling is whether or not Rey and Kylo Ren have a child now, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Okay.
So, I'd rather wager that Snoke's real first name is Joseph than to say that Rey and Kylo Ren are going to have a child going into Episode 9.
Yeah, my gut reaction would be, and that was what I was alluding to before, is that I don't think it's Ben Solo. I think it's more likely the child of someone like Rose and Finn or something like that. I mean, it could also just be new characters, new child. I don't know, and maybe that kid has a little bit more of a role. But yeah, definitely not going on the Reylo thing.
All right. Well, the Force is with me that I would love to see a baby Ben. I mean, we talked about this, guys, when we talked about Last Shot. Like, my favorite moments were those baby moments between him and Han and him and Uncle Wenwo, Lando. So that would be cool. Maybe it's a Lando flashback, you know? Yeah, I'd totally be for that. So the Force is definitely with me. Obvious. Okay, so going into our next topic. Many people are going crazy with the rumblings of Billy D. Williams coming back to play Lando Calrissian in Episode 9. But let's talk about some other supporting characters in the trilogy. While we know the big four of Rey, Finn, Poe, and Kylo Ren will return, there is no guarantee we'll see the return of Rose Tico. What if Rose Tico does not return in Episode 9? Is the Force with you, James?
Ooh, now I know I just said that, but I think that the story could go either way as long as there's a time gap. I think that the romantic relationship between Finn and Rose was there, so if Episode 9 they decide to go and embrace that, yeah, sure, they're still together. It's been 3 years later. Or they just say, like, well, where's Rose? No, I don't know. She's over there doing the thing over there or whatever. It's not really that big of a deal. They might not even have to address it. Maybe it comes in a book later down the line. Who knows? But what if she doesn't return in Episode 9? Meh. I'm going to bring it back. The Force is with meh.
John?
The Force is with me. I wasn't a big fan of Rose Tico. I think her main purpose was to help Finn realize the importance and what really matters, and she was a classic supporting character. That's what she was. I don't think she needs some kind of new arc or... I don't think Episode 9 is going to have room for that. So if anything, she's just going to be more of a supporting character, and I think she may return, but honestly, I would not be surprised if she doesn't. I mean, we've seen that happen. She helped Finn get his character where he needed to go, and that's what a supporting character does, as I just mentioned. So what if Rose Tico does not return in Episode 9? I wouldn't be like happy or anything, because I think they'd find a good way to use her. I think JJ can make that happen. But yeah, I'll just say the Force is with me on that.
You know what? I'm with John. I take it back. Force is with me. That's
convincing Baney again.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
I like the idea that Episode 9 is just, there's just going to be too much that is important, and she doesn't necessarily need to be an important character. She's a supporting character. Yep. Her place is not in Episode 9. I like that.
Thanks, man.
Boom.
I'm going to disagree with both of you. I think the Force is not with me. I think she's definitely coming back. I think people really liked her. I know there was a big, loud, chest-thumping group on social media and whatnot that were like, oh, this character sucks. But from what I heard from people with kids, people loved Rose, and they connected with Rose, and she was different from the people that are in the main heroes that people maybe didn't feel like they could be the hero. I don't think she had a huge role in Last Jedi. I think, like you guys said, she did help Finn get where he needed to go. But I'm interested to see what could happen to her in the next one, and I definitely think she's going to be in it. So I disagree with you guys, and the Force is not with me.
But I feel like I need to clarify that neither James nor I are that chest thumping or anything.
I never said that.
Of that.
For sure.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the listeners understand that.
Oh, yes. No, I'm not saying that about you guys, and I'm sure they don't think that either. I'm talking about the people that chased her off social media.
Oh, you mean...
yeah. What?
they attack the actress, and all that stuff. Yeah.
Like those people that attack her and her character, and they're part of the minority. Most people had positive responses to Rose and liked that character and liked what she stood for. So I would totally like to see her again in the next movies, and I think she definitely will be there. So the Force is not with me on that one. All right, well, that's all we got for this week. So let's head into the discussion.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
Finally, we get to talk about Kylo Ren. I have been on the podcast for how many months now, and we finally get to go into deep discussion.
We had to do something to hold you over for a week.
Right. Guys, by the way, I'm not going to be here next week. So.
This was like Lacey's going away gift because this is her final show on the podcast.
What?
For a week.
Oh my God, I was going to say, what? Is there something you need to tell me before we recorded this?
This is her final show for June.
Yeah. Yeah. Me and James are gonna be recording next week, and we're gonna track Lacey down in Canada and call her and be like, "Yo, what's going on up there?"
Yeah. Or I could just do the Eric Cartman, Jennifer Lopez thing, like, "Hello, I am Lacey," and just do the whole episode like that.
Or I could do the South Park Canadian guy, like, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing up there in Canada, buddy?"
Or you'll just subtweet me about how like some girl on your podcast likes Kylo Ren and you hate her, and I'll somehow see it, and then I'll come running back.
That's true.
Well, yeah, there you go. We can do it that way. Yeah, the classic subtweet. We all love that. It's very villainous. And speaking of villains, Star Wars has arguably the greatest villain of all time in Darth Vader. I think the three of us might agree with that. Yes? No?
Sure.
Let's all do our Darth Vader impressions, and then our listeners could see who's the best. So
go ahead.
Okay, I'll go first then.
So he only breathes
that was
once.
Me.
Go ahead, James.
Are you supposed to do more than once?
No,
think that was
you're done. James.
Sounded like he was opening a soda.
I know, but somehow pumping like an air pump.
Yeah.
Okay,
He
let's
is
see if I can,
pumping
really
an air
get
pump.
into this.
That's literally what's happening.
That
was pretty good. That's probably the best one.
Thank you so much. And for fun fact, they did that sound through opening and closing scuba diver equipment.
Yeah, and they put like a microphone down in the tank.
Yep.
Yeah. I wish I took that more seriously. I should have known Lacey was going to bring her A game on that one. So guys, don't vote on that because I don't want to lose. And James stunk. So
Oh, James was really great. James, you actually got second place. I don't know what John's talking crap about.
Yeah, it was horrible. That was terrible. So after the podcast, I'm going to practice, and that'll be my goal for next week. But the greatest villain of all time, Darth Vader, and many would argue even Palpatine is up there too. Two big villains came right out of the original trilogy into the prequel trilogy. Now we could say Kylo Ren has held his own as a very complex villain. But even Adam Driver says, I don't consider him a villain. But aside from him, do Star Wars films have a villain problem now? So I want to discuss this based on the films since the prequel trilogy. When you look at all the villains that we've had, Orson Krennic, Dryden Voss, Beckett, Enfys Nest briefly, which we didn't really understand. We thought she was a villain. Do a lot of these villains stick? Are they menacing? Do they need to establish better villains? So we're going to have a discussion about that, and then obviously we want to hear what you guys think. So, Lacey and James, what do you guys think? Does Star Wars right now have a villain problem?
Ooh, gosh. Does it have a villain problem? Well,
Oh, and James, I forgot to mention even Joseph Snoke. I totally forgot about
Joseph Snoke is, yeah. This is a hard topic to not bring up Marvel, and I hate doing that, but I know John hates that dreaded word. But the thing is that they're known currently. I mean, they did the Thanos thing, but they're currently known right now for having mediocre villains, and the people in charge have made note of that, and they've openly said that, yeah, we focus on our heroes as opposed to focusing on our villains. And I don't necessarily think that Star Wars is doing that. I don't necessarily think that's the intention, but I don't know. I kind of get the feeling that they are saying, hey, man, this is Han Solo's story. Let's put him up against somebody, but we don't need that person to come back. We don't need that person to be super menacing. We don't need him to be like someone who's going to haunt Han for a very long time. We just need this dude to like run into some problems and figure out a way to get out of the problems, you know? So that's Dryden Voss, that's Enfys Nest, you know, and they can sort out some of those things where being like, you know, this guy died, and this person turned out they weren't even really a villain. Right. I mean, we'll start off with that. I mean, Lacey, do you agree with that, or do you think that those are worthy villains?
I think it's really tough to top Darth Vader. We're going to kick that one off. So yeah, with that is easily one of the top villains of all cinematic history. So when you set that bar so high, everything else is not going to be as memorable. So going into the prequels, you had Darth Maul, who was so promising as a villain, I feel, in the prequels. And then they killed him. Obviously, he comes back, but they killed him in the prequels. And then, you know, Palpatine was evil. He was evil. And you were like, oh, yes, everybody hates him. And then it goes into him and Darth Vader into the original. Sequel, I thought Snoke was great. I thought he was super menacing in The Force Awakens. I don't think in The Force Awakens Kylo Ren was a good villain in the sense that he did some stuff that was sketchy, like he killed the guy, and then he ordered a village to be slaughtered, and then he didn't say anything when they killed the Hosnian system, but yeah, he didn't push the button. And then he obviously killed Han, spoiler alert. But I don't think he was ever...
Sounds like a good guy.
But at the same time, though, he did all those things, but I didn't get a menacing thing from him. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't get that aura of like, oh, he's bad. I hate him. I actually kind of liked him. And then going into Last Jedi, it made me like him even more. He kills Snoke. He basically saved Rey, so to speak, in that they worked together, but like he got her out of the situation. So I think they have a problem in the sense of I don't know where they can go from here. And I know everybody, and you guys included, say that he's the villain of the sequel trilogy and he's the bad guy. I just can't see that right now based on the Last Jedi because of what he did in The Last Jedi, and I don't know where it can go.
This is where that's where I have a big problem.
Hold on, wait. So then on Solo, I think that Enfys Nest was initially marketed as the bad guy, and you had Dryden Voss, who was pretty much creepy, but like I didn't get like super baddie vibes from him. And I think maybe that goes back to the article that we talked about with Empire, where Paul Bettany's just super good looking, and sometimes it's really hard to hate good looking people. But that's why they added him killing that guy in the movie. But yeah, do we have a villain problem right now? Kinda, because I don't see Kylo Ren as a bad guy, and I need some hard convincing to show me that he's bad, because in Last Jedi, it made me think that he was even more soft than he was in The Force Awakens. So
just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you have to really be bad guy.
No, I want like full bad guy. I want like full bad.
So you don't want Zangief?
So
what?
What is that from?
Wreck-It Ralph, guys.
Oh,
they have the whole they have the meeting, the like AA meeting for bad guys, and they're like, we're not really bad guys, we're just bad guys in the game. We're good people. You know, man. It's a good movie.
This is kind of my problem with this whole thing, because it's like, you know, you had Rogue One and Vader was in that, so
and Tarkin, who's a bad guy,
and Tarkin, who was a great bad guy. So you can't really count Rogue One because Krennic was good. Like, he was a good character and stuff, but I would never like think like, oh, one of my favorite villains ever was Orson Krennic from Rogue One. It's like, nope. So then you look at Solo, and you had Beckett, who was quasi bad guy. You had Enfys Nest, who ended up not being a villain, and then you had Dryden Voss, who, like Lacey was just saying, you know, he was a good villain, but again, even he had a boss, and the boss wound up being Darth Maul. And where's Darth Maul from? Oh yeah, the prequels. So it's like they keep going back to the well for the standalones to bring back old villains, because they weren't able to really establish their own new core villain. So then I flipped to the sequel trilogy, And you have Snoke, and he's the new Emperor kind of guy. And you're not sure what his whole deal is, but you get those Emperor vibes. And then you have Kylo Ren. And in The Force Awakens, I thought he was a good villain. He had his mask on. They called him the Jedi Killer. He had his like ashes of the Jedi he killed. He obviously killed Luke's whole academy, the other students. He killed Lor San Tekka, told him to murder all the villagers, killed Han Solo right through the chest. He tried to kill Finn, almost did. All this stuff. And then they kind of flipped the switch on The Last Jedi and made him, complex and that sort of thing. So now we're in a situation where we don't know who, if he that's why I really hope he does become the supreme leader that they're saying he is, because then we're going to have a serious problem, because by the end of this trilogy, who are we defeating? Just a blanket First Order? That's not Star Wars to me. Star Wars is personal, very personal. It's not Empire versus Rebellion to me. It's Vader versus Luke and Palpatine and all that stuff. So that's my concern, and that's why I really do think Star Wars does have a villain problem right now.
So Lacey said the thing that I think most people are obviously, when they hear this question, they're like, it's hard to top Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine, right?
Yeah.
She said that. And it's the same thing as like Force Awakens comes out and does like, over $2 billion. And it's like Last Jedi doesn't do that much, but it still does bonkers money. And everybody's like, oh, it failed. But it's like, how are you going to top $2 billion? It's just like a train, a wave of fans and rejuvenation in the series. Like it's not going to happen. The pilot episode is always a huge watch, and then some people stay and some people don't. It's not that big a deal. Darth Vader and Palpatine are great villains. Now the other thing is that you mentioned that the prequels also had Palpatine, and okay, yeah, that's fair. So they had a great villain, but it was the same villain, right? It's the same character. It's easy to... They didn't write a new villain and then we say, like, oh, that wasn't as good as Palpatine. It was Palpatine, so they already kind of had that. Like, if I was writing a movie and I was allowed to use Darth Vader, guess what? I have a great villain in my movie now because I get to use that character.
James, were the prequels considered Palpatine standalone movies and their sequels?
Probably. Sheev, A Star Wars Story.
Yeah, and then the sequel was Attack of the Clones, and then...
Yeah, exactly.
Someone brought up Darth Vader, A Star Wars Story, and I was like, guys, come on.
Yeah.
See, I would go see it, though, and so would everyone else.
So what years are you looking for that to be focused on?
I mean, I don't want to go back to Vader too much here, but it would definitely be during the killing all the Jedi era between 3 and 4.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all you got. Well, especially since that's literally all you got. He was Vader from Revenge of the Sith, and then he was dead by Return of the Jedi, so that's all you really get. The other thing I want to say, too, is that, like, Maul ended up being a really great villain. And he had a lot of potential, but if you look at his role in that movie, he wasn't a great villain. Like, he just looked evil and kind of had this menacing thing. He's about as good of a villain as the bear in The Revenant.
Yeah, he had 3 lines. He had 3 more lines than the bear in Revenant.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a worthy battle. And there was a lot that could have been really cool with that character, but they killed him off. So I would venture to say that the Phantom Menace kind of suffered in the villain category there, even though they did have Darth Maul, and Darth Maul is a great villain. If that kind of makes sense.
He was fresh, which was important. Like, George Lucas made a fresh villain there, and that was the first villain we saw since Darth Vader. Yeah, and people. No matter what people say about the Phantom Menace, people drew themselves to Darth Maul.
Yeah, I love Darth Maul. My problem was that I knew who Palpatine was. So going into the prequels, I was like, I know who this guy is. So to see Darth Maul, when that door opens for that big lightsaber battle, you're like, oh, man. And he lights up that dual saber staff. Oh, my God. I still get chills with it. It's such a good scene. So good.
So... Yeah. And
I agree.
I do agree with that, but I know that Maul was a great villain, but in the overall Star Wars canon, but I'm saying movies alone, who was a better villain for that film? Krennic was a better film than Maul. Maul didn't really do anything, didn't have any lines, he just kind of was there. He's kind of a really cool pawn. Kind of like...
Krennic?
Yeah, or Dryden Voss. Same thing. Like, we have this villain that has a story that we know what he's all about and all this other stuff. We didn't get any of that stuff with Maul. He's
Krennic was a pawn too, though.
You're saying that though, but he's the main focus of that movie. He's the villain.
I know, but in the story, he was the pawn. Tarkin played him like a punk.
He got played.
Yeah.
He's a prime example of the meme. I made this, and he takes it and he goes, I made this.
Yeah, right. And that. See, James, that's my problem though, because you have Krennic and you're saying like, oh, he's a good villain, and I agree he was. But what they do, they took an old villain that we knew and had him kind of snuff his importance out, kind of like what they did with Maul snuffing out the importance of a Dryden Voss in Solo. Like, Dryden Voss wasn't really that big of a deal, it turned out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could understand that angle. I still think that if you look at, okay, Maul didn't end up really being anything great in The Phantom Menace, and you're saying that both Krennic and Dryden Voss were characters that didn't need to end up being great, but like, who was a better villain for the movie that they were in? Like, I think both of those guys were better than Maul, because Maul didn't do anything.
Yeah, I don't want to go back. I'm keep comparing people to Darth Maul from The Phantom Menace, but
yeah. The guy who, like you said, has only like 3 lines, only shows up for a little bit, you know?
But his presence is big enough that he doesn't need lines to be like, oh, he's bad. And it's like a combination of his look and his demeanor and his stunts and the music and everything about him that makes you feel, oh, this guy's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like when they're chasing after Anakin,
with Lacey on that.
And he's like, drop it, Anakin down. And he flies over it. Yeah, no. Maul's awesome.
And now, but going ahead into episode 9, especially like Lacey, if you think, Kylo Ren's this good dude and then he's going to be redeemed and he's going to go...
I didn't say he was a good dude. He's complicated.
Running through the prairies with Padme, like his... like Padme did with Anakin, then so be it. But who's our villain in episode 9 then? Who's the Resistance need to beat? Who's the one that needs to be defeated?
So... I'm going to preface this with, I never said he was the good guy, because he's definitely not the good guy with everything that he's done. He's definitely complicated. So I think in being that he's accomplished what he always wanted, which is Supreme Leader, you think like, oh, he's finally made that choice. But at the end of the movie, he looks even weaker than he was at the beginning of the movie.
So who's our villain?
Is this just like me guessing? Because I've already said that I have no idea.
Speculating, do you think they're going to bring in a new villain? Do you think they're going to bring back Snoke? Or do you think they're going to make Kylo Ren the main focus, main villain?
That's got to be the choices.
Guys,
yeah,
I think Kylo/Ben, I prefer to call him Ben, is on a journey of redemption. And I think it's going to happen, and I know you guys don't want it to happen, but I'm pretty sure it's going to.
All right,
so then what do you think?
I think it could
so then who's the villain?
Right, so I think, one, it could be, these are my guesses, it could be Hux. Hux could be throwing some type of behind-the-back stuff. They do that really slow push at the end of Last Jedi to Hux when Kylo Ren tells the guys to hold up and he goes into the room to find the dice. They do that slow push into Hux with that look on his face. And in cinema, when they do those pushes, it's the screenwriters and the director telling you something about Hux. So I think he's an option. I think it maybe.
I think if he's an option, then Star Wars has a villain problem.
Okay.
Because of how Hux was handled in Last Jedi. He was fine. He served his purpose in Force Awakens, but in Last Jedi, he was not the focus. And I'm fine with what they did with Hux to a degree. I'm actually, to be honest with you, he's probably one of the more characters I wish they would have handled a little bit better. More so than Luke, more so than Rose.
They almost turned him into like Elmer Fudd, where like Kylo Ren was just like throwing him around. And
I totally agree that if someone who's like an awful person, like if you put Tarkin in that situation and the Emperor was like throwing him around the room and then some Darth Vader comes in and throws Tarkin against the wall, like, okay, that sucks and that's Tarkin's place. It's more like the actual villains are mistreating another really good guy, or not good guy, good villain.
Hux is really a glorified like Captain Nita. Like he's not a main Star Wars villain. So I hope that's not the answer. So then, Lacey, you're saying maybe they possibly introduce a new villain for the third movie?
Yeah, so my other option was, because they hinted at this with DJ talking to Finn, and there's kind of this overarching theme of, like, you don't know who the bad guys are, they could potentially be building it up so that you get an idea of who the overarching organization is. So someone had to be giving Snoke money and weapons and the ability to have all this power. So kind of a man behind the curtain thing. That could definitely be something that they could be building up to, that they could do in a good way, that doesn't feel like they're just throwing new storylines out there, but it's been building to it.
This is the Mandarin we never got from Iron Man 3.
Right, exactly. So, like, it could be that. You know, again, I said at the beginning of this conversation, like, I don't know where this could go because I'm a strong believer that they're going to redeem Ben. So I don't know where they could go from here for villains, because I just don't see him as the bad guy. The last scene of the movie, he's giving the camera puppy dog eyes. Like, you don't make your bad guy have these big
right
fat
after he tried to
eyes.
kill everybody.
To a degree, I can understand where Lacey's coming from too, because I'm also saying the same thing about Hux. Like, you can't do that to your bad guy and still have him be the bad guy. Yeah.
I'm just showing, like, I'm literally talking you through these shots that they ended the movie with. They ended the movie with a slow push on Adam Driver's face with his lip quivering and, like, tears welling up in his eyes. So, like, it's really hard for me to be like, that's the guy. That's the bad guy that's going to murder everyone, and he's going to, you know, we could go into episode 9, and it could be obviously a time break, which we've been discussing for a couple weeks now, and the galaxy could be great. He could be doing a really good job and not be the bad guy. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna throw another one for you, Lacey. The other time we saw him puppy dog eyes, almost crying, was seconds before he killed Han Solo. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
but
we have this, like, big
it was a tough decision. Yeah.
Yeah. So if that's where the movie ended. It ended with his puppy dog eyes. But had the movie gone on 5 more minutes, would he have shouted out to destroy the Millennium Falcon? You know what I mean? And he starts screaming and throwing people, and he's angry, and he's, you know, and all this. It's like, if that were the case, which may have happened, but we didn't see it on camera, you know, that
but I think it's
kind of changes.
Choice. Right. But I think it's a strategic choice for them
filmmaking
to go
choice
from
to show that.
Him being quiet, him fighting with Rey and being crazy and fighting, like, and stabbing people, chopping off heads, then to pleading with her, which Rian Johnson had compared this to Notting Hill, where she's like, I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy telling her that I love him or whatever.
My God.
He compared that scene to that in an interview. So you can't say that there's no emotion and there's no...
Good gosh.
John, go read the interview. He compared it to that scene.
No. I understand, but...
Wait, let me finish. So then he's pleading with Rey to join him. Then he snaps, right? And he's protecting himself, or she's protecting herself, whatever. Then he's fighting Luke, which brings up its own emotions because Luke tried to murder him in his sleep, which we can all agree that that's creepy AF, that a dude was trying to murder someone in their sleep. I don't care who it is. That's creepy. Especially because they were like huts. Like, he had to, like, walk across that field to get to that hut. Can we, like, just talk about the process that it took to get there? Okay, so anyway. So then he has that...
Premeditated murder.
Right. Then he had to... whatever. Okay. So then he's fighting with Luke, and he's yelling at Luke. He's like, I'll destroy her. I'll do all these things. But then he comes face to face with her, and he does none of that. He sits there, and he looks at her with sad eyes, and he basically is pleading with her to, like... you know, God knows
because he was
what.
trying to bait her back in because
he could be. We don't know, but I'm saying
she's his last.
But it was a strategic choice that the director and writer made, Rian Johnson made, to end Kylo Ren's scene with him looking at the ground longingly.
Ominously.
Okay, how about this, Lacey?
I'm just saying, I agree with you that it could be a villain problem because I don't see, and I'm sure tons of other people feel the same way. I don't see him as a bad guy right now. I see him as like a guy that wanted this, then got it, and now doesn't know what to do with it.
So Rian Johnson was the person that made the choice to end that on that scene, and now we have JJ coming in and, you know, looking left, looking right, and going, I can make Kylo Ren the villain again, right? You know, there's no problem here. Like, he kind of did a thing, and then maybe the next director, whether it was Colin Trevorrow or whatever, was supposed to take off from what Rian Johnson took away. But now that it's J.J. Abrams, do you think he's going to follow that Rian Johnson story? Rian Johnson was kind of...
I'm sorry, what are you assuming Rian Johnson's story was?
What you're proposing. Rian Johnson, the director choice to leave on that scene, to give this character complex emotions and all these different scenes that maybe paint him in a little bit of a different light. And now we're back to JJ, and JJ's like, that's not the light I saw him in, so I'm going to make him dark again.
Well, can we for a second just say that Rian Johnson said multiple things, like I think he left it for the audience to interpret as to what that scene meant.
Sure, and J.J. Abrams is one audience member, and he just so happens to also be in control of the next film. So if J.J. Abrams didn't really latch on to the puppy dog guys and goes, yeah, but that guy's just tricking Rey, you know, and trying to lure her back in or whatever, or he's just like obviously so conflicted he's to tears, but he's evil at the heart.
But he did, though, because he's executive producer. He said he wanted to direct it. You're saying what does he have to do to make him evil? Here's what he'd have to do to make Kylo Ren evil in my eyes. Kylo Ren would have to murder Princess Leia. If he murders his own mom, then I'm on board.
Murdering dad's not enough. Happy belated Father's Day, though, everybody, from us here at the Resistance broadcast.
So, reasoning because in Last Jedi, he doesn't follow through on it. And there's a moment where he could have done that. And I think if he did do that, I'd totally be like, yo, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, and you see it in Last Shot, there's a lot of things that could lead up to like that father-son moment. And it's a trope within Star Wars where, you know, the father-son, father-kid relationship, you know, Han left him, he could feel resented, he felt like he was alone, he had nowhere to go. Like, there's so many things that play into this that, like, kind of explain Han. If he was to murder Princess Leia in Episode 9, if he's the reason that she dies, I'm totally on board that Kylo Ren is evil as AF. That's it. That's
you would
the switch.
finally come on board if he kills Han Solo and Princess Leia and then all those other people?
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
So here's my deal. Like, I know he's conflicted and all that stuff, and I completely get it. And I appreciate that you have people who can see the red dress or see the blue and black dress, and people that can see the gold and white dress when they look at Kylo Ren. They see Yanni and Laurel. Like, they hear Yanni and Laurel. I get it. But, like, from my vantage point, now that I've understood yours completely, Lacey, is this is the only pathway for him now, because he exhausted all of his opportunities and he had all those chances put in front of him, and every time he had it, he chose darkness. Even when he had a chance to join Rey after they fought off the the Praetorian Guards and Snoke, he still said, join me, let's start something new and rule the galaxy. That's pretty much what he said. He didn't say, you're right, I'm Ben Solo, let's be happy. So he keeps having these options and these choices presented in front of him, and he keeps choosing darkness. And now I feel like he burned all those bridges where Leia said, my son's gone, I know that. Scratch that off. And then the dice disappear in his hand. Bye, Dad. Scratch that off. And then he looks at Rey and she closes the door. Scratch that off. You, sir, are alone, just like you wanted it.
John,
yeah, I think he regrets it. It looks like he regrets it.
All villains regret things, but sometimes you go to a point where it's too far, just like Vader, and there's no turning back.
But he could still turn back.
I don't think so. I mean,
let's get back to the is there a villain problem thing. John, it seems to me like you're saying that Rogue One maybe could have used a better villain, so villain problem category. Han Solo maybe could have used a better villain. All right, we need better villains, villain problem.
Yep.
But then you have Force Awakens and Last Jedi, and you're like, what I'm gathering from you is you like that villain. You think this guy's up to par with some of the other Star Wars villains we've had. Maybe not Vader, maybe not Palpatine, but dang close is what you're saying.
Yeah, but in order for this to pull it off, he has to see that through, though. Because if we don't have a strong villain out of him in episode 9, then none of it matters to me. Because a trilogy is a trilogy as opposed to a standalone.
Yeah, we need to feel good that he dies. Yeah, is what
if
you're saying.
JJ rolls in with a new villain, that's JJ taking a risk for himself, and I don't know if he wants to do that, right? And then if they're like, oh, we're going to make Hux the villain, I'm going to be like, get the hell out of here. Like, General Hux, the main villain of this movie. Like, that's General Veers. That's Captain Nita with more dialogue. Like, that's the guy who got prank called by Poe Dameron in the last movie, and now he's going to be our main villain. JJ's going to be like, I don't think I'm doing that. And this is just all my opinion. I may be wrong completely. And then you have, the Knights of Ren could come back and stir things up a bit, I guess, which is another wild card option. But they're faceless. There's no personality there. So my only option is Kylo Ren. I liked him in Force Awakens, liked him in The Last Jedi. But if they try to redeem him too early and don't give me that full villain version of him that I feel like we all deserved, then I think it's a cop-out. And I think Star Wars has a big villain problem unless B and Dubs, Benioff and Weiss, and Rian Johnson give us some new badass villains.
Yeah. What do you guys think of, I know your opinion on, like, Boba Fett and probably, like, Captain Phasma, some of these, like, underplayed villains, that weren't really meant to be, like, the big villain. But what about Jabba the Hutt?
I like Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, I like Jabba.
Do you think he's,
I thought he was a great
villain?
I thought he was great. I think he played his part. I think he was like that sleazy, gross dude that tries to lick Leia on the face. Like, that was one of those moments when I first watched it. I was like, ugh, gross, so disgusting. I think he was a good
villain. Is Jabba the Hutt better than Darth Maul?
No.
They're so different, James.
Yeah.
You have Darth Maul, who's like a Sith, and then you have Jabba, who's just that sleazy guy that has a lot of people that follow his will.
I'm just saying that in Phantom Menace, your main villain is Emperor Palpatine, and a little side villain for you is Darth Maul.
Why do you keep going back to Phantom Menace with Maul, though?
Because we only have so many to go back to.
I know, but my point is, like, Jabba the Hutt.
I'm trying to ask you about Jabba the Hutt, and then you guys are like, I don't know, maybe not. Yeah, I think he's great.
Well, Jabba the Hutt... Yeah, but Jabba the Hutt's not the main villain of Return of the Jedi, so it doesn't matter.
And neither was Maul. That's my point. That's why I'm trying to compare him to Maul.
But both those movies had good villains.
I said Jabba was great. I don't know where.
I'm just trying to see if, since we're comparing all the villains, we're looking at all the villains. We're looking at Phasma. We're looking at DJ. We're looking at Lando. Yeah. Lando the villain.
Right. I know, but I don't think Star Wars had a villain problem before The Force Awakens and beyond.
I think The Force Awakens and beyond is where the villain problem started. Because people weren't sure how they felt about Snoke.
That's what I'm saying.
And then going into Last Jedi, Snoke's gone, and everyone's like, wait, what? And there's like this big question mark over who's the bad person in episode 9.
So, James, are you saying they may have had a villain problem before?
No, I don't think they had a villain problem, and I don't think they have a villain problem now either. Because I think that Krennic and Dryden Voss are just as interesting of villains as some of the other villains that we saw in the movies, such as Jabba the Hutt or Lando or DJ too. I guess that's a later villain, but the whole aspect of a character coming in and Dryden Voss being this evil person who would pretend to be so polite and nice, but talk to you that way. And Krennic is similar too, I know, with him coming in and he says, "Oh, my condolences."
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like that scene alone is such. It's so obvious that we have a good character in Galen Erso over here. He's scared. He's scared that this guy's infiltrating his family and he's going to take him away. And we get that immediately when this guy shows up in a very peaceful manner, just to say, oh, you'll be heroes of the Empire. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's so dark and evil. That's the kind of stuff that I felt like they're pulling that information and that type of a character from someone who's great, like Palpatine, someone who is in the prequels trying to be so nice and pleasant and political.
Let me re-switch the question on you then.
You're awful. You're an awful person. I know it.
A head villain problem.
Head villain problem.
How about lead villain?
Yeah, lead villain. Whatever vernacular you prefer.
I don't know. I think that, gosh, I mean, it's hard to say. We're trying to compare to Palpatine. He's had 6 feature films, basically, where he's the main guy. I guess 5,
well, and,
you could say.
And Vader, too, because, Vader was our villain for the first 2 movies. Yeah,
and Vader. So it's like... Yeah. I don't know, guys. I mean, it's kind of a loaded question to say that and we got back to it. We're back where we started, It's hard to compare any villains to Vader and to Palpatine. And if they don't stack up to those names, then Star Wars has a villain problem, ? I don't think that's the case. I think we've got some really good villains, diverse, interesting, unique villains.
So, James, your final verdict after this discussion right now is Star Wars... since the prequels does not have a villain problem.
I will say this is gonna make it sound like I'm backtracking on the whole thing. I always think that they could be better because we've gotten other great villains, but I don't think that there's a problem. I don't think that it's like, dude, so that villain sucked. Okay. Like, I have I'm not scared of that dude. I would just punch him in the face and walk out of the room. You know what I mean? I'm not feeling that way. I definitely would be intimidated by these people and their threats to our heroes, So good villains.
But you're saying overall no.
I think
so
Kylo's dangerous because you don't know what he's going to do. How about that?
Sure. But Lacey, what do you think then? Under the guise of how you think it's gonna go, does Star Wars right now have a villain problem?
Okay. It's just difficult for me to answer this question because I trust everything that they're gonna decide to do.
Yeah.
I think they have a problem in the sense of, like, I'm not convinced that Kylo is the villain. So if you're gonna lead with Kylo as the villain, I'm not gonna believe it until he does something that I think is bad. I'm not saying other people don't agree that he's done terrible things, and I know he has. But until he does that thing that, like, to me is like I can't come back from that. And, like, based on all of the stuff he did in Last Jedi, which makes him look not as bad, yeah, it's kind of a problem in my eyes. I'm not sure who they're going to have be the villain, because right now Kylo Ren is not the villain to me. I know he is, but I don't see him as the villain. And, again, what do I know? But I don't view him as the villain.
Can I ask you guys this? Out of the 4 in the Disney era being Dryden Voss, Krennic, Kylo Ren, and Snoke, who's the worst villain?
Worst as in, like, not effective?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you could say
which
worse
is what the conversation is. Like, they're just not an effective villain, not a great villain for the movie. Could have been better.
Dryden Voss.
Yeah, Dryden Voss.
Dryden Voss?
He was a throwaway.
Yep. Sorry.
Take or leave.
With Krennic right behind him.
Krennic was bad in the sense that he was so driven by his motivation and goals that he was crazy. And that's why I saw him
He's an insecure dude.
Yeah. That's why I saw him more of a villain than Dryden Voss.
Well, so your guys' verdicts are in. You both were very wishy-washy and don't want to give a steadfast answer. So you're both my villains, but I'm going to say...
I don't think Kylo Ren's a villain. I don't know what to tell you. I don't think he's a villain. If he's not the villain, then I guess they do have a villain problem because I don't think he's a villain. There's my answer.
Go talk to, like, any 8-year-old and be like, who's the hero of Star Wars? They're like, Rey! And you're like, who's the villain? They're like, Kylo Ren! Like, it's not hard to figure out. He's the villain.
So my verdict is yes, Star Wars has a villain problem. But let us know what you guys think out there. Did our discussion sway you one way or the other? It was. I mean, we battled a little bit, but it wasn't really Star Wars war. I feel like we just kind of just like hashed it out.
Yeah.
James was trying to dial it back to the prequels to do some comparisons there, and Lacey had some wonderful monologues about our friend Mr. Kylo Ren because she's very passionate.
Which one is he again?
I think he's that guy whose master was Joseph.
He's the shirtless one.
Oh, Joseph. Joseph's Padawan. Yeah, I got you. Right,
Joseph's Padawan, right, to the dark side. So that's it. Let us know what you guys think. Does Star Wars have a villain problem right now? And give us your thoughts because we love discussing that with you. And maybe we'll fire up some more Ask the Resistance and Resistance transmissions about some villains to get your guys' takes on that and have some more fun about it. But we survived it, Lacey. We talked about Kylo Ren, and you and I didn't kill each other. So lesson to everybody out there, the discussion can happen.
There's more to be discussed, John.
Yeah, there's more to be discussed for sure. We'll get James a referee shirt or something. All right, so James, do we have some Resistance transmissions? Let's hear from them out there.
Yeah, Resistance transmissions this week it was a great one. We got a ton of responses to our proposition, our little thing that we put up. We said there are rumors of the Boba Fett film. There's rumors of no Boba Fett film. Let's just keep it simple and direct like Fett would. Let's say he escapes the Sarlacc pit and he says one line right after getting out of it. What would Boba Fett say once he escapes? And like I said earlier, we got some of the best answers. So Samus Hannigan at the Dick Sam, he said, and I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
He's nod to Empire.
Yeah. That was a good one. Man.
Tauntaun.
Yeah, Tauntaun being on the inside of that thing. That scene still today, that scene still today haunts me. Like, oh, I can't even imagine somebody being like, well, I got to keep the guy warm. So they cut him open and stick him inside. It's like, yeah. Ugh,
desperate times call for desperate measures.
Yeah, OT Nix at This Is Nix said something that was very common. I heard this a lot of people saying similar things, but this one was a clever spin. I'm no good to me dead. That's a little bit of my own Boba Fett voice. I'm doing a Boba Fett voice on this, but I like that he put it back on the I'm no good to myself dead.
Yes.
Scotty J-Ro at the Scott J-Ro, classic Scotty. He just came in with John's dream quote, which is, I'm overrated.
John is losing it. John is broken.
That is the best single Resistance transmissions response I've ever seen. That was the greatest. Oh my God, Scotty, you are in the Hall of Fame, dude. You are in the Hall of Fame.
Coming up next, we had what would you say, Bruno de Amare?
Bruno do Amaral.
Bruno Mars. What?
Amaral. At Bruno de Amaral is his handle. And he said, in a very Anakin-style fashion, I hate sand. I hate sand. So I could, yeah, it would be cool to know that when the Sarlacc goes deep into the pit, the sand falls back in, and now he's actually having to climb out of the sand. And he just pops his hand out, and he's like, "Ugh, I hate sand."
Dude, you know what's funny? That actually makes a lot of sense because he probably wasn't used to sand because he grew up on, I know he spent some time on Tatooine, but he grew up on like an ocean planet.
That water storm
and everything
planet.
Was super sterile and clean.
Yeah.
It's like he lives in a hospital and then he's like,
with that lady that's like, welcome, Jedi Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when he got to Tatooine the first time, he's probably like, what the hell is this shit? Like,
yeah, I'm getting paid to be here. All right, I'll hang out. Christopher W. at Sing for the Day, he said, this doesn't concern you, Jedi. Just walk away.
Ah.
Hmm.
I don't actually get that one.
Now that is from the 2003 game Jedi Academy.
I don't believe you.
That's a line from that video game.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So classic line.
Oh my God, James has been stumped about something that's canon. That's in a weird referenced thing.
Wait a minute. Is that what did you say it was a reference to?
It's not canon anymore,
yeah,
I guess.
Not canon anymore. Get out of here.
Okay, well, some random referenced thing. James doesn't know.
Last one we got here was Christophe Blanc at Chris Blanc 42. He said, darn, there's a Snoke in my boots.
There's a Snoke in my boot.
No, did like that made me think of Toy Story.
Yeah, obviously that's what it is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know if Toy Story was referencing another Western about a snake in my boots, or if this guy was going straight for the Toy Story reference, but that made me laugh. That was a good one.
Yeah, but that's it, though.
Dude, I just wrote, because I just wanted to chip in one. I was like, I just wrote, I'm going to kill Han Solo. And some guy commented, he doesn't even know that Han Solo hit him. So I was like, I don't even know why I commented. Like, I'm done. I'm never commenting on these.
Yeah, mine was something along the lines of, that's why I was saying that I saw a lot of the same ones, is because I think it's the initial response is to come up with a he's no good to me dead sort of variation. And mine was similar to that. I said Han Solo is now officially good to me dead because he's the guy who kind of ruined his life. That's it for the Resistance transmissions. Man, we got, like I said, we got a ton of those, like 50, 70. I think even as we were recording, they're still rolling in, and I'm like, man, that might have been a good one too. But get to them quick, and maybe you'll get a shout out on next week's episode. But we're gonna have John wrap this one up because I think we're getting close to our time.
Yeah, thanks, James. I sometimes think the listeners like those better than asking questions because those things always get fired off. But thank you guys so much, and make sure you are subscribed to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And if you have a few seconds on iTunes, just rate us 5 stars. It helps us out a lot. Also, like and comment on our YouTube videos. I think we may have some cool stuff coming up in the future with the podcast itself, in addition to our other videos, like Lacey's that she'll get into in a minute. And of course, on SoundCloud, you can actually be a follower on SoundCloud too, and share the videos, our audios of the podcast there. So thank you very much. Again, head to tpublic.com/user/resistance broadcast. Check out our designs. James talked a lot about Maul on this episode, just to bury that in your head, to go check out our Maul designs that he churned up on there. So check those out in addition to all of our other designs, including a shirtless Lego Kylo Ren, which is a fun little one that I'm sure Lacey probably likes. Head to StarWarsNewsNet.com, our website for all of your latest news, reviews, information, editorials, and more. James, where can people find you, man?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks, but I just want to give a shout out to, all the fans, all the listeners of the show, is that, if you ever find yourself in a dark place, where you're just not feeling good about yourself, just remember that right now, currently, in his bedroom is John Hoey practicing his Darth Vader breathing sounds.
That's true.
Oh, John's the worst.
That's probably me snoring, trying to sounding more like Darth Vader than anything. All right, right on. Lacey, where can people find you?
People can find me on YouTube, hosting the Star Wars Newsnet show. Blanked for a second there. It's great. I hope you guys enjoy it. They'll keep coming every week. And talking about Kylo Ren on Twitter, as always, at Lacey Gillerin. I won't be on the show next week. I know you guys are super sad about that. I'm so sorry. I'm traveling to a galaxy far, far away called Canada.
What's that about?
So I won't be on the podcast, but I'll miss you guys dearly, and I'll be on the week after that.
Nice. What part of Canada are you heading to?
I don't know yet.
Wow.
Saskatchewan.
I probably know. I just don't have it in front of me.
Very cool. James, what was the best city to play rock shows in Canada?
Best show? Oh, it's probably now I feel like all the Canadian listeners are like, oh, is he gonna say my town? But I mean, like the biggest, the most common town to go to is Toronto. Obviously, it's basic.
I thought you were saying Montreal.
No, Vancouver is like the other kind of major place. That's on the other side of the country. But I love
Calgary.
Yeah, it's really weird because the only time we ever played in Canada often was in the winter. So my memories of Canada were just like, this sucks. Why is the wind chill like -40? It's like Winnipeg was like awful, and Edmonton is just like, was literally like the worst ever. Like we were throwing water into the air and onto the side of our trailer, and it was like one of those situations where like the water would bounce off because it would freeze before it even hit it.
So it was like Hoth.
Oh, dude, it was nuts. like nuts. So that's Canada for you.
And you're not disparaging Canada. You're just saying it was really cold.
Yeah, it was very cold. So it's hard to give quotes on the city like, oh yeah, it's great. Good city life. Went downtown, walked around. Like, it wasn't like that at all. It was like, I'm staying on the bus as long as I can until I have to go outside.
Right on, man. Well, you guys can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey, writing and editing over at StarWarsNewsNet.com. Lacey, we'll miss you. Have a great time in Canada, wherever you wind up.
Thank you. I'll miss you guys.
It is summertime, so you won't need to have the horror stories that James just talked about.
It was actually 40 degrees there recently. So.
Oh, really? Well, there you go.
You can go to Regina because their gambling age is lower.
Where?
Regina.
Are you sure it's not Regina?
No, it's Regina. There's a reason Regina rhymes with fun. It's in the Deadpool movie.
Do they have monologues there by any chance?
What? Oh, yeah, I got you.
I'm glad I'm taking a break, guys. This is why I need to take a step.
All right. Well, me and James will see you guys on Monday. We'll see if we can rally up a guest to join us so it's not just the two of us talking about Reginas. But be sure you're subscribed. And we'll see you guys very soon. Thanks for listening. Enjoy your weekends. And we'll catch up with you right here on the Resistance Broadcast.